Is this a weed or a plant? My wife and I must have asked that question a dozen times yesterday as we worked in the yard. Neglect by the previous occupants had allowed the landscaping to be overrun by vines and weeds of all sorts. Now that it's spring and everything is growing rapidly, we're trying to sort it all out and dig out the bad weeds and leave the good plants. Unfortunately, it isn't easy, and often the good get pulled up right along with the bad. We just learn to shrug our shoulders and keep pulling weeds. Shrugging off the death of plants may be okay, but it isn't okay to shrug off the death of people. That's why living as a Christian in a dying world is difficult. We know we will die and have taken God's admonition to heart, but the righteous will live by his faith, Habakkuk 2, verse 4. We live by faith in Christ and with a hope for eternal salvation. We are confident that the compost pile in the backyard isn't our final destiny, like it is for the weeds, nor is a nice box in the ground or an urn on a shelf. However, we also know that the unbeliever will die, and having lived without Christ here on earth, will live without him in eternity. That is why the death of anyone is heartbreaking for God and for the godly as well. I'm speaking primarily of spiritual death, though physical death is a reason for sorrow as well. Habakkuk was a believer who was bothered by the injustice among his own people. How long, O Lord, will I call for help, and you will not hear? I cry out to you, violence, yet you did not save. Habakkuk 1, verse 2. He was bothered even more by the greater injustice of Babylon, whom God was bringing in judgment on Israel. Why do you look with favor on those who deal treacherously? Why are you silent when the wicked swallow up those more righteous than they? Habakkuk 1, verse 13. What Habakkuk failed to see is that sin is sin, and judgment comes on all who rebel against God's will. Israel had rebelled, and judgment was coming. That's why God told him to write it plainly, so that the one who reads it may run. Habakkuk 2, verse 3. And he called on those who would live to trust him. He continued with a promise that all the wicked will be judged, including Babylon. Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 4 through 20. He ended with a rebuke. Stop arguing with me. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him. Habakkuk 2, verse 20. And he was to continue pleading with the dying world that Babylon is coming, and they won't care if you're a weed or a plant. And that same warning applies to us. Do we shrug our shoulders at God's judgment on others? Or do we hurt for them, knowing judgment is coming for us if we don't live by faith? Just some thoughts for today's Sunday struggles on Morning Minutes in the Bible. Until tomorrow, this is James McClenny hoping you have a great day.